everyone, and welcome back to LewisNews, your #1 YouTube channel for all types of Spider-Man news. And in today's video, we are going to be covering Andrew Garfield coming out and essentially talking about the cancelled Amazing Spider-Man 3 and his time filming Spider-Man No Way Home. But before we get into that, if you are new around here and you enjoy all types of Spider-Man news from the games, the movies, and the shows, we cover everything here on this channel. This is the Spider-Man news channel where we cover absolutely everything in relation to the character. So make sure you're subscribed to stay up to date with absolutely everything. Basically, if you're a Spider-Man fan, this is the channel for you. But with that being said, let's get straight into the quotes. So Andrew Garfield has come out and spoke about the Amazing Spider-Man 3 in an interview with GQ, and this is what he had to say. He said, "I don't know if I had an expectation of doing more. I was very open to it being whatever it was meant to be. But there was an undone feeling. Like, what was that experience about? And how do I close that circle in my living room on my own?" And I was doing that, and then I was like, that classic thing when you're getting over a relationship and you're just starting to feel really free and untethered from that thing. The person knows to call the hour after the first good night's sleep you've had. So essentially, he's saying that he would have done TASM 3 if the option came about, but obviously, we know Andrew Garfield's thoughts and feelings on the TASM franchise, especially the Amazing Spider-Man 2. We know how he doesn't like how Sony treated the character. He's come out on multiple occasions. One of the most notable ones was when he did that interview with Amy Adams, where he spoke about how Spider-Man broke his heart, and how TASM 2 was just a film that went really downhill, and the character was just ruined. We know Andrew Garfield likes something special. We know he wants to make something that is special to him in his heart. But him, Mark Webb, and the rest of the cast obviously were kind of just thrown aside by Sony for money, and we know that that franchise was not what Andrew Garfield and the rest of the team wanted it to be. So obviously he would have done the Amazing Spider-Man 3 because of how much he loves the people he worked with and how much he loved the Spider-Man character, but it honestly broke his heart, and I think that's what he was trying to say. You know, he was getting over that toxic relationship with Sony and getting over not being able to play Spider-Man again. Which leads us on to Spider-Man No Way Home, where Andrew Garfield says, "But doing No Way Home was really just kind of beautiful. I got to treat it like a short film about Spider-Man with buddies. The pressure was off me. It was all on Tom's shoulders. Like, it's his trilogy. And me and Toby were there to provide support and have as good a time as possible, actually, and be as inventive, imaginative, and kind of dumb as possible. You know, between the three of us, I was like, oh shit, this is going to be interesting. You have people who feel real ownership over this character, but it was really like brotherhood at first, I think. And I think that comes through in what we shot." So obviously Andrew Garfield then talking about his experience with No Way Home, and we already knew this. Obviously through the film itself, we could tell how much fun they were having with it, and in multiple interviews they've done, we just know how much fun Andrew, Toby, and Tom all had filming No Way Home, and just being together as the three Spider-Men, and us as fans really loved that as well. But then he went on to talk about how he kind of had to carry the franchise of the Amazing Spider-Man by himself, and Tobey Maguire had to do the same with his Spider-Man movies, but went on to talk about how Tom Holland kind of has that backup from the larger Marvel universe. He said, which was a very different job for each of you. Tom Holland still has to carry these films, but they're part of the larger Marvel machinery, which means on some level they're too big to fail. You walked in there after Tobey Maguire and had to carry a Spider-Man movie by yourself, with no guarantee that you'd get to do it again. And we also know, to make matters even worse, that the Amazing Spider-Man franchise was Sony's attempt at making their own MCU, which, as we know, didn't work out very well, and even Andrew Garfield and even Mark Webb and even Emma Stone could not save that franchise from being the absolute train wreck that it was. And then one last quote, he goes on to talk about how he was quite young when he started filming the TASM franchise and how it was a lot to take on. He said, "I feel that about myself as a 26-year-old. I'm like, that was a lot to take on. It's a ton to take on. And I wanted to take it on. I was ready. I was so up for it. It didn't feel heavy. But I think there were elements that felt I sensed danger for myself in terms of fame and exposure. Even as I took The Amazing Spider-Man on, I was like, I want to make sure that I get to do Angels in America and Death of a Salesman in a few years' time. I want to be a theatre actor first, because that feels evergreen. If I can do theatre for the rest of my life to an audience of 50 people a night, I know that my life is going to be satisfying. So essentially, Andrew Garfield is saying here that, you know, his passion is for movies, his passion is for theatre, and his passion is for stories that are dear to him. And obviously that was one of the things that broke his heart on The Amazing Spider-Man 3, because it wasn't a story that he felt like came from the heart. And this is one thing that really worries me about all of these Amazing Spider-Man 3 claims. Obviously, we already talked about Andrew Garfield being in talks with Sony about The Amazing Spider-Man 3, but we've also seen multiple times in the past rumors surface on Andrew Garfield potentially having disagreements with Sony over creative differences. And I worry that Sony want to make a corporate movie with The Amazing Spider-Man 3 purely for profit gain and don't want to focus in on telling the best story that they can. And I think if Andrew Garfield is to be involved, The Amazing Spider-Man 3 has to be a special film, not just to the director and the cast and the fans, but also to him as well. So like I said, I'm quite worried about this, but if anything is agreed, I'll be letting you guys know as soon as possible if any sort of deal is reached between Andrew Garfield and Sony. But this has been him talking about his experience with the Amazing Spider-Man films on the cancelled Amazing Spider-Man 3 and obviously Spider-Man No Way Home, and what it was like to be reunited with the character and obviously to work with Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure to hit the bell next to the subscribe button so you do not miss another video as soon as it comes out on the channel. Like I said, post all types of Spider-Man news from the games, the movies, and the shows. The Sonyverse, Venom movies, Amazing Spider-Man 3 if anything comes out, freshman year, PS4, MCU, absolutely everything we post it on the channel, so make sure you're subscribed. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care and peace.